the beginning, there was darkness, a void. The heaven, the earth, formed from this void, and in the plain of high heavens dwelt a multitude of gods. In the fifth generation of these heavenly deities, a brother, a sister were born. Their names were Izanagi and Izanami, and they became man and wife. Together they stood as one and dipped a spear into the ocean below. From their spear droplets fell, forming islands, the islands of Japan. The two then descended to this place and gave birth to the mountains, the trees, the wind, and to the sun goddess Amaterasu. And she in turn gave birth to Jimmu, the first emperor of Japan. He and the emperors that followed united the islands into one nation, and the people into one people.
Somehow the world you see, the one I see, are practically the same. Haven't we one pair of eyes and two bodies? If necessary, then, can't I leave all the seeing to you?
The interview with Toshiro Shimanouchi, former ambassador of Japan.
We are a uniquely homogeneous people with one race, one culture, one language that has contributed, because of our insular position, to a closely knit society.
interviewing of Edwin Reischauer, former U.S. ambassador to Japan, now professor, Harvard.
This brings up another question. Are the Japanese modernized or are they westernized? I think fundamentally one has to see them as being a modernized people who modernize on the basis of their own culture. And while there are many superficial aspects of westernization, they wear neckties, they play baseball, fundamentally they're just themselves, but in a time of modernized technology. Giving a modern pattern is somewhat different from the modern pattern of the West, and therefore a pattern that's extremely stimulating to us.
Twisting, turning, the country train weaves, in and out, among the villages, darting through the fields, golden and ripe.
The interviewing of Dr. Leon Zalbrod, Professor of Asian Studies, University of British Columbia.
You know, the way agriculture is handled in Japan, that is traditional agriculture anyway, you have to work together to make a paddy field. You have to share water with the people who live next door. You have to get together in order to clear the land and to dig the irrigation ditches. And you have to live at peace with your neighbor in order to bring in a harvest at the end of the year.
No one man flies off on his own in search of fame. In Japan, we have a saying that a protruding nail is hit on the head. And so Japanese, even today, are reluctant to become too obvious or too visible. We are more of a collective society, a society based upon decision by consensus more than anything else.
Toshiro Shimanouchi,
My name is Raido Shiraki. I have two children. My son's name is Daisuke. He is 7 years old. And my daughter's name is Michiko. She is 4 years old. And my wife is teaching her to dance.
はい、上手。じゃあ、足を横にするのするよ。はい。はい、1、2、3、4、5、6、7、8、1、2、早すぎる。もっとゆっくり。もっとこうやって。はい、上手よ。何する？はい。5、6、ならない。こういうことでは、お医者さんに行くのは後回しにしようか。これは私は絶対に認めた。ロキとしか悪くない。
Now, the Japanese, they had a lot of experience with moving towards a democratic parliamentary form of government and before the war, and there was a real touch and go as to whether they would make a go of it or whether the military would win out. And the military managed to win, but when the military then led them into the disasters of war, well, obviously the other route they were on was the correct one.
Edwin Reischauer.
So I think that the future of democracy is very hopeful because of these healthy signs that we see around us. And interest at the grassroots level is increasingly evident in Japan. More and more our people are getting into consumer movements, in movements to preserve the environment. And it is a more participatory democracy than ever before.
Toshiro Shimanouchi.
Therefore, having and not having arise as one. Difficult and easy complement each other. Voice, sound harmonize each other. Why is it that the truth is often paradoxical? Moving, resting is meaningless, traceless, leaving, coming across autumn mountains, howling wind.
The Japanese company or bureaucracy or whatever it is much more feels itself a group. All the different levels are still a single group, and they spend a great deal more time talking things over so that everybody will understand it and everybody will have had his chance to put his input in. And the ultimate decision is more likely to be a consensus decision rather than a decision of one man at a top.
As is well known, this country was in ruins after World War II. We had very few industrial raw materials available at home. The land space is limited, that is the usable space. But we did have quite a large population of well-educated, diligent workers.
On Sunday, we do not think of Monday or Friday. The one is past, the other yet to come. And Sunday. Ah, yes, Sunday. It is here. It is now.
私には鏡に映ったあなたの姿見つけられずに私の目の前にあった幸せにすがりついてしまった
The Japanese, they've seen great changes come. The changes always seem to be associated with the Western world, and therefore give this impression that somehow they may be losing themselves. I just don't see it that way. I see fundamentally the Japanese being extremely Japanese all the way through. They're successful basically because of the cultural characteristics they inherited from the past, their traditions, that made it possible for them to do what they did in the post-war world.
Edwin Reischauer.
In answer to your question about the great strength of Japanese civilization, I find it to be continuity. That's the single word. You have the idea that we should pass on to the next generation the life that we got from the gods ourselves.
Dr. Leon Zolbrod.
And so the big challenge today is how much of the good tradition that we have should we and can we retain, and how to incorporate better features of other countries into our own system and make a go of it.
敏郎島の内
I know not whether it was I who journeyed there, or you who came to me. Was it dream or reality? Was I sleeping or awake?